Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the booze.
For the Booze.
I sound like I just woke up. I didn't realize it until I started talking into the microphone. But anyways, we're back. Second week back.
Yay.
I'm not going to keep announcing how many weeks we've been back, but we're back again.
We are.
We have a very interesting story this week. I found this topic, I guess, while watching YouTube videos.
That's mainly, I think, where we've seen this place.
I didn't know much about this place. It's in England, so we're going overseas.
Yay.
I think it's been a while since we've done that. But I got the idea from watching Beardo Gets Scared, and he actually went and investigated this place. But I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever heard of this place, but it's apparently pretty famous over there, to the point where, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but my bestie lives in England.
Yeah. Shout out bestie.
And he even knows about this. Like, he's heard of it. So
cool.
it's pretty well known. And it has some it's got some parallels between some other very well known stories. Mm-hmm. But we are going over to the UK to do a location called
30 East Drive.
That's right. Now, we do have a listener story, but I'm going to push it off till next week, and I'm going to explain why. We were up very late last night.
Yes, yes, we were.
Converting the studio once again. We're getting it ready to do YouTube videos, and I have to edit this in a timely fashion. So I don't want to rush somebody's story. I don't want to do that to them. So we're going to hold that off until probably next week. So your story is still here. I still have it. It's still coming. But we'll be doing it next week. And I am sore. I am so sore.
I know.
Our basement is a wreck.
Everything that we are going to put up on the walls is literally just spread out across the entire basement floor. We actually had to pick the table up and move it back to where we normally have it just to sit down and record this.
It looks like a store just exploded onto the floor. So I mean we're going to be doing YouTube videos, and we want to make it look right. But it's a lot of work. I didn't anticipate how much work it was going to be.
Yeah, we literally just covered the walls for like 3 hours last night.
I'm looking at it now. I can see I need to fix it.
Just this side right here.
Yeah,
it just needs to be pulled right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just take them out and put them back in. But anyways, so yeah, we had to put stuff up on the walls. Because we don't want to just put videos out that look bad.
Yeah.
We want to make it look nice, and so that's what we've been doing. So your story is coming, I promise. I have not forgotten about it, and it will be here. You guarantee it will be next week. We'll be reading your story.
I've been waiting so long to hear the story. I'm so excited.
I haven't even read it, so I don't even know what
it...
Nope.
Oh my God.
And normally I do, but I wanted to wait. I wanted to kind of hear it with you. Yeah. So I haven't even read it.
Nice.
But it's coming. So I say, let's get into the story of 30 East Drive.
All right, let's do it.
From 1974 to 1986, West Yorkshire was an administrative unit. In 1986, the Metropolitan County lost its administrative powers, and its constituent boroughs became autonomous administrative units, or unitary authorities. West Yorkshire is now a geographic and ceremonial county without administrative authority. It encompasses the urban complex that has developed in the deeply etched valleys of the rivers Aire and Calder as they descend from the Pennine uplands in the west to the Vale of York in the east. West Yorkshire extends north into the scenic valleys of Airedale and Wharfdale. In the 18th and 19th centuries, abundant water power and, later, steam power based on locally mined coal stimulated the growth of industry in the region. The traditional textile towns in the hilly western area, including Huddersfield, Halifax, and Bradford, are no longer major textile producers, and mining in that part of the county has ceased. Today in those areas, including the boroughs of Calderdale and Kirklees, engineering, paper and packaging, and light manufacturing are among the most important activities. In the eastern part of the county, coal mining declined dramatically during the late 20th century. Only a single mine remains near the town of Pontefract. Pontefract grew around a Norman castle as the market center of a rich agricultural area. The castle, built in 1069, became an important stronghold, sustaining 3 sieges in the mid-17th century English civil wars before the Royalists surrendered. With the development of coal mining in the locality in the 19th century, Pontefract acquired industries, especially engineering. Today, it is still a market and service center. It manufactures licorice, confectionery, or pomfret cakes, and has a well-known racecourse. The town of Pontefract and the village of Wentbridge are of central importance to the legend of Robin Hood, as it was told in the Middle Ages. The 15th century Robin Hood ballads placed the outlaw's activities in the forest of Barnesdale, the southern edge of which bordered modern Wakefield. The earliest surviving manuscript of a Robin Hood ballad, quote, Robin Hood and the Potter, makes reference to Wentbridge. Quote, Ye met him but at Wentbridge, Little John. I met him but at Wentbridge, said Little John. But today, we aren't talking about legends and fairy tales. We aren't talking about mining and candy making. Today, we are visiting the home of what many consider to be the UK's most haunted location, a dream destination for investigators and a nightmarish hellscape for others. 30 East Drive. Throughout the world and down through history, poltergeist activity is claimed to occur in rare cases. A haunting commonly starts with noises, usually tapping noises, quiet at first, but then building up to a loud tapping and then banging. The next thing to occur is sometimes people claiming to see small pools of water, spontaneously appearing on the floor and other surfaces around the house. The strange thing about these pools is that they are almost always neat and symmetrically shaped and never have splashes. After this, the activity can take various forms and increase in intensity and develop into a full-blown haunting. One of the most remarkable cases on record was the well-documented case that the press called, quote, the Black Monk of Pontefract, and happened in Yorkshire, England in 1966. It all began on an ordinary June morning at number 30 East Drive in Pontefract. Pontefract is a very ancient pre-Roman town and boasts a very old priory, which is now in ruins, and a medieval castle. The town once had a gallows, erected as was the custom of the time on a crossroad on a small hill. The practice was thought to confuse the ghostly spirit of those executed and buried there so that they could not find their way back and return to the place of their crime to haunt it. The site of Pontefract's old gallows, it later transpired, was right where 30 East Drive now stands today. That Thursday was warm and summery, and the Pritchard family were all at home in the back garden of the home, enjoying the sunshine. Joe Pritchard, his wife Jean, and their 2 children, Philip, age 15, and Diane, age 13, were sunbathing. But Gran, Mrs. Sarah Scholes, had gone indoors, out of the sun, and was sitting in the lounge happily knitting a cardigan. It was the family in the garden who noticed the tapping noise first, and in the beginning, just tried to ignore it. They would return to enjoying the afternoon in time with the family. However, after a while, Joe sent young Philip to investigate. Philip, trying his best to follow the noise, wandered in through the kitchen and entered the lounge where he met the strangest sight. His gran was sitting, knitting in a shower of gray-white powder, raining gently down on her. She had been so absorbed in her knitting that she hadn't noticed the powder showering until Philip walked in and made her look up. Once she saw it, she reacted as most grans would with a 15-year-old grandson. "Philip," she accused, "what mischief have you been up to now?" But even as she spoke, she realized her grandson couldn't be responsible because the top of the room was completely clear. The shower of powder began about 4 feet from the ground. When Gran went to the kitchen to get a dustpan and brush, she found the floor covered in pools of water, and the tapping noises were getting progressively much louder. She called her daughter Jean, and together they mopped up the water, only to find that it kept reappearing every time they would get rid of it. They talked Joe and Philip into pulling up the linoleum, thinking the water was coming up through the floor, only to find the concrete floor was dry as a bone. Then, Joe returned to the back garden to turn off the water, noticing as he did so that his daughter Diane was taking absolutely no interest in the quite unusual events happening all around her. For the rest of the day, pools of water kept mysteriously appearing in the kitchen, and the tapping noises grew louder and louder. Joe and Philip spent most of the night trying to track down the tapping noises, but they always seemed to come from the next room or somewhere else. The next morning, after a long and tiresome night, Jean contacted the local water company, who spent some time inspecting drains and checking for broken pipes, but would never find anything wrong. Eventually, they offered the rather lame excuse that it must be condensation, and then they left in a hurry. Over the next few weeks, things became almost unbearable for the Pritchard family. Apart from the noises, which were now occurring mainly at night, objects started to move around the rooms. Ornaments, flower pots, eggs, and even cups of tea would disappear and be found later somewhere completely different. To make matters worse, even more strange things started appearing. At first, it was just small stones or pebbles raining down on the kitchen roof, which is a well-known and documented poltergeist phenomenon. However, one day while Jean was clearing out the kitchen grate, a multitude of old keys rattled down the chimney, some hitting her on the head. The collection included every key in the house, but also several very old keys that no one had ever seen before. From then on, the haunting increased to include crockery and pot plants being broken and an increase in the noise until a crack appeared in the bedroom ceiling. Electric lights switched themselves on and off at the wall and at the main switchboard inside a locked cupboard. Then one night, just as the vicar who had come to visit to offer spiritual comfort and guidance was leaving, their prized grandfather clock fell from the landing and smashed into pieces by the front door. The vicar promised to return, but never did. Much of this activity had been witnessed by policemen, newspapermen, the local member of parliament, and several priests, all of whom advised the Pritchards to leave the house at once, but the Pritchards were stubborn and refused, vowing to stay and beat the thing. The local newspapers published the story and initially named the phenomena Mr. Nobody, but the Pritchard family, possibly to normalize the situation, gave the entity the name Fred. Although the haunting went on for a long time, it really came to a climax when the ghost began to show itself. Now, at first, it was a tall, dark figure, seen briefly at night or in a bad light, they said. Fred even had a sense of humor. One time, when, at the vicar's suggestion, the family had an evening of singing hymns and religious songs to move Fred out. Fred joined in by making a large pair of fluffy gloves appear to be conducting the singing. The next day, the gloves were still in the lounge, and Mrs. Scholes picked them up with the fire tongs, took them out into the back garden, and lit them on fire. Then, one day, the humor stopped, and everything changed while Jean was standing at the sink peeling potatoes. Suddenly, she recounted later, quote, "The hair on the back of my neck began to stand up, and I knew there was someone, or something, standing behind me." She turned around and found herself looking at a very tall figure, dressed in a black monk's robe, with a cowl covering his face. The figure looked quite solid, and oddly enough, she felt no fear. Then, the monk just vanished before her eyes, seeming to sink into the floor. After this, the family saw the monk on numerous occasions, and the local press were prompted to look up old records in the library, and what they discovered was very interesting. It was revealed that way back in the reign of Henry VIII, a monk had been hanged on the gallows that once stood where 30 East Drive was now located. The monk had been found guilty and later executed for the rape and murder of a young girl. So the conclusion was that the tormented spirit of the monk, dubbed the Black Monk of Pontefract, was still wandering the earth on the site of his death. The last serious incident in the case occurred soon after and seemed to confirm everything that had been discovered about the Black Monk from the records. Late one evening, as Diane was going to bed, the lights went out all over the house, and Diane began to scream. When the family ran to her assistance with a torch, they saw an incredible sight. Diane was being dragged up the stairs by an invisible force. Her cardigan was being stretched out in front of her as if being pulled by a strong, unseen hand. She was also, it seemed, being held by the throat as her screams soon turned to choking gasps. Her father, mother, and brother all grabbed hold of Diane and pulled. After a considerable struggle, all 4 of them fell back down the stairs as the invisible force gave up. Diane had bright red marks, which would later turn into severe bruises on her throat from the strangled position. Once they had pulled themselves together and revived Diane with a large glass of brandy, the family decided enough was enough and moved out of the house to stay with other family members. After this, the hauntings, which had occurred over 9 months, faded away quickly and then disappeared altogether. Eventually, the Pritchard family went home, repaired the crack in the bedroom ceiling, cut the grass, trimmed the neglected hedges, and generally got on with their lives, like the good Yorkshire people they were. In the case of the Black Monk, there were so many other ordinary, sensible people who witnessed the haunting at 30 East Drive that it's impossible to dismiss it as imagination, trickery, or Diane faking the attack to attract attention. But I suppose it's one we will never truly understand, unless the Black Monk decides to return one day. And that's what happened at 30 East Drive.
That's quite a bit of stuff.
Now, I say that there are parallels here because if you recall the Enfield haunting, very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's differences in the story, but it is a very similar type of haunting.
Yeah.
Crazy. What really stands out for me in this is not, I mean, obviously it's a crazy story. I didn't touch on it as much as I could have. Mm-hmm. A lot of people saw this. This wasn't just like a...
Well, they talked about the mailman,
the
water people.
There are newspaper articles about this. They went to the house and saw it.
Wow.
So these weren't just made up stories, like
Or
legitimate
like
news,
isolated just to the family.
legitimate newspapers, like news authors, what
Mm-hmm.
are we, writers, reporters. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Saw this stuff taking place.
Yeah.
Like people saw stuff happening. So
That's
where
crazy.
other stories, it was more word of mouth.
Right.
People saw this.
That's crazy because it sounded like they were just almost like sitting outside, and then all of a sudden one day, it just started happening.
That's exactly how it went.
Yeah.
One day, and they had lived there, and I can't remember if I wrote it in your part, but they ended up living there for years after.
Wow.
And nothing ever happened again.
Maybe it was just a passerby, you know?
Well, no, it was the monk who was executed on the site, but maybe there's a lot of things we just don't understand about the paranormal, and maybe there are just times where, certain spirits have a certain amount of allotted, I guess, energy.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. But for once, what stands out to me is how many people saw this.
Right.
Because usually we talk about things that are just passed down stories or
legend, lore.
Yeah, stuff that a few people claim they had a run-in with. But this is like an entire town and reputable people who saw this.
Documented in newspapers.
It is
like, that's crazy.
It is insane to me how many people saw this go down.
Right.
And I've seen the newspaper articles. There are legit newspaper articles about this and the family. And they didn't try to like milk it for everything it was worth afterwards. It came out. It was seen. It was heard. And then
they dealt with it. They left.
Yeah. And then they came back home and they never tried to like ride the money train and be like, it still happened. Like they were just like, I don't know. It just stopped one day.
Wow.
It's insane. It is such.
I feel like that's so much more
believable,
normal, and a believable type of thing.
Well, see, I'm going to kind of go against you on this. I think the occurrences are so out there. Like, these are some of the most extreme that we've heard of, like people being dragged up the stairs by a rapey monk.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I think the stories sound outlandish, but what gets me are the reputable people who saw it happen.
Right.
That's what gets me.
It's not just the family saying
Yeah.
things.
I mean, think about keys raining down on you, or even just the tapping, or the perfectly symmetrical circles of pools of water.
Okay, that's super weird to me. Super weird.
But
and then they came back like in the same spots. Like it's
and
very strange.
The fact that the family moved back into the house, man, you guys are beastly. So I
brave souls.
I tried to look up like where they were today, but I couldn't find anything. I don't know. And I know the house is now empty, and you're going to talk about who owns it. But
well, that also goes along with like they didn't ride the money train part of it. They just lived there, and then when they left, they just went and lived their lives, and it's not a thing that they continually talk about.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
It just seemed like it happened, and then they went on with their lives.
Huh.
Which is, again, what makes me think it's got there's a little more believability to it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because nowadays, if something like that happened, they'd be selling tickets to the front door.
Oh, 100%.
So
100%.
Good on these people. But this is only half a story. This is just the history part of the story.
I finally get a story.
No, I'm going to read it. No, I'm just kidding. Megan's coming back.
No.
Got to do the spooky girl. But we'll be right back after a word from whatever sponsors you get in your area.
And now, Booze Crew, back to the show. "30 East Drive is infamous for being home to Europe's most violent poltergeist. This property has seen many people leave in terror over its years of existence. As this is deemed one of the most haunted houses in Britain, it has many similarities to the infamous Enfield haunting. The 2012 film, When the Lights Went Out, was based purely on the terrifying story of the Pritchard family that lived in this house, and there have been numerous newspaper reports that can be associated on social media about the haunting. The producer, Bill Bungay, bought the house and still owns it. He had a photo taken on his iPhone of him and the film's two starlets. His phone died, even though it had 75% battery, and the photo wasn't in his library. Weeks later, it reappeared. On Valentine's Day, 2016, Bill was washing up and had the urge to turn around. Allegedly, a domino levitated from the dining room table and launched at him, narrowly missing him. After that, other objects were launched at him, each time narrowly missing him. There was even a marble thrown from the ceiling that chipped the varnish off the piano board, 2 screws thrown from the ceiling, and a red ball. Another time, he closed the side gate, blocking it with a concrete block. People ran out through the kitchen door, saying the keys had gone missing. He turned around to see the gate was open, the block appearing to have been pushed aside. Today, fans of all things weird and spooky can experience the strange goings-on for themselves. However, it certainly isn't for the faint of heart. In fact, the house is so haunted that the owners really do advise that you don't visit. But, naturally, the curious will continue to do so anyway. As the house is pretty much uninhabitable thanks to its allegedly violent residents, the owners themselves have never spent the night, a decision made after witnessing the poltergeist's nature. But guests are welcome to stay the night, should they dare. The owners also warn that the house suffers from a damp smell, which comes from the well that lies below the house, where the bodies of the Black Monk and his victims were actually thrown. Guests are also warned not to stay in Diane's room, where the poltergeist tends to have bouts of rage, even in the early hours of the morning. Those wanting to stay at the property are required to sign a waiver due to the unpredictable nature of the house, with the owner insisting that he only keeps the house open to visit due to the high amount of interest surrounding the property. Bill Bungay, ad man, film producer, and new owner of the property says, quote, "What possessed me, forgive the pun, to buy the most infamous house in Europe, simply because I had recently made a movie about the house called When the Lights Went Out, with director and good friend of mine, and native of Pontefract, Pat Holden. Of course, the truth is that despite having visited a very dark house in Coventry and spoken with a family that were being terrorized by a poltergeist, I still remained socially skeptical. To me, if the Black Monk ever existed, then surely, after 40 years, it would be long gone. An assumption that proved to be terrifyingly wrong. Then, the story started coming out from Carol, the neighbor, and now key holder of the house. Reports of 3 to 4 a.m. bumps and bangs coming from number 30, glowing blue balls of energy in the corridor, the duvet on Carol's son's bed being formed into the shape of a man on his bed, the black shadow of a very tall entity coming through the wall into her house, and so on." End quote. The home has been widely investigated by many paranormal teams, such as Most Haunted, Paranormal Lockdown, and even YouTubers, hoping to document any malevolent activity that has garnered the home its infamous reputation. It is believed that this property is haunted by a malevolent poltergeist known as the Black Monk of Pontefract, also affectionately known as Fred. Despite attempts to bless this house, there are still paranormal teams reporting objects being thrown or moving in front of their eyes. Dark shadows lurking, doors opening, and strange sounds are even claimed to be heard when no one is around. While the Black Monk is the most prominent ghost at 30 East Drive, it is also believed a female spirit haunts the house. Visitors have reported feeling sick in the oppressive atmosphere of the upper floor, while demonic growling sounds and heavy footsteps have been heard. The coal house has also a negative spirit that has been known to lock unsuspecting guests in, leaving them traumatized. A ghost hunter claimed to have snapped the clearest photo ever captured of the infamous phantom. The paranormal investigator says the picture shows the arm of a ghostly figure in a monk's robe clutching rosary beads. Pete Bolton and Rob Hughes from Ghost Inspectors Paranormal Group snapped an eerie face in a black hooded robe staring out of a mirror at the bottom of the stairs. Mother of four, Claire, a researcher for the East Drive Paranormal Group, claims her photo is the most definitive proof of the Black Monk that still haunts the building. The 44-year-old from Pontefract said, quote, "I have been to 30 East Drive a few times, and this particular night, the equipment had been active. We had seen marbles being thrown, and we kept hearing taps and bangs. The arm you can see in the photo is not a solid form. It looks like mist and is very strange, but you can see the sleeve of a robe hanging down. There is something which looks like rosary beads in his hand dangling down." She also added, quote, "I sent the photo to a friend in America without giving her any information about where it was taken or the history of the house, and without knowing anything, she said straight away it looked like the arm of a monk," end quote. An article written by self-described skeptic Hannah Robinson on wholedailymail.co.uk about an investigation reads as follows. "The decor is very much in the style of the 1970s, with posters of the Osmonds still hanging on some of the walls. But the house is seemingly unchanged since the apparent poltergeist activity. We began the night with some information about the property's creepy past, and, as with any ghost hunt, worked in the pitch black, with only small torches as guides. For the majority of my stay, I was able to rationalize all sounds and apparent paranormal activity. There were thuds that were clearly car doors from the outside world. An orb on the night vision camera could be explained away as dust or insects traveling around the unused property. The table didn't tip, despite the ghost of Nora occupying an armchair in the corner. The glass didn't move on the table, and there were no knocks or touching when we asked the spirit world to come forward. A dark figure was seen in the kitchen by a number of guests through the glass door. A white light was seen to flash in an unoccupied bedroom, and you could feel something building in the air. There was, however, one moment I could not explain. All of us gathered in Philip Pritchard's former bedroom, which overlooked the landing and the top of the stairs, where most of the electrical equipment had been reacting. We sat in the darkness and looked out into the landing in silence, waiting for any signs of the netherworld to be walking among us. As a skeptic, the only thing that scared me was being in the dark with strangers. But it was at this point Phil told us about the head of the family, Joe, had come in one night after a session at the pub and died in the upstairs bedroom after choking on his own vomit. Within minutes, a member of the public on the tour asked Joe to turn a torch that was propped on the top of the banister. Within a second, it blindingly shone at us. Tentatively, another asked the alleged ghost to turn the torch off again, and there it went. As well as the odd behavior from the torch, we used a computer system that transforms electrical signals into words appearing on the screen, and I could only hold my breath as such words as
black, beer, sacrifice,
and
Lord's Prayer
appeared on screen. As well as a few expletives, the majority of the words were nonsense. But there is something about group hysteria that causes you to momentarily drop all rationality and wonder whether you are really looking into the face of a spirit. The scariest point of the night was walking to my car at 2:30 a.m. when a pea super had descended over the housing estate, making it difficult when looking at the roundabout to determine what were trees and what were scary black monks. I still don't believe there is an afterlife, as I need more proof than a torch turning on and off. But these ghost tours are a great form of entertainment. The sensory deprivation of waiting silently in the dark rivals the tenseness of any horror film. And for those who do believe, it's a great way to reaffirm their need to hunt for more evidence. As far as haunted houses go, 30 East Drive is the best I have been to so far. But what do everyday people think about this location? Let's check TripAdvisor and see. Elena, in November 2023, says, quote,
"A really fantastic night. My girlfriend and I went to the haunted house's overnight experience, and it was a really active night. Neil and Adam were perfect hosts, and we couldn't have asked for better people to show us the house. We heard humming, whistling, and a growl. And the human pendulum was the most terrifying experience. Definitely a see it to believe it type of experience, and made us hungry to do more. Thank you again."
Susan, back in August of 2023, says, quote,
visited with organized, well-known ghost hunting company. The fact that the house looks like a regular house on a built-up estate made it more sinister. We did have some activity on the landing whilst we were in the hall, and there was a cold draft and a smell of burning in the parents' bedroom. I do believe others had more or less activity than other visits, but if you're interested in the paranormal, it is definitely worth a visit. It is not suitable for children or people who have a nervous disposition. Useful to read the history before you go. I would definitely go again.
And one more from Chris W. in November 2022 says, quote,
visited with my partner for HH Ghost Hunt, a group of 8 in total, hosted by the very knowledgeable and welcoming Lisa. It was a great night, and I felt my face being touched several times throughout the night. We had a cat ball flash and stop on command in the parents' bedroom. and the door opened on us in Diane's bedroom. We really enjoyed the experience, but left unconvinced. It was only the following morning, when reviewing the recordings I had taken in each long vigil, that I heard I had caught a very clear EVP in every room. None of this was audible at the time. There was a little girl who giggled in the bathroom, a loud breath in Philip's room, and a man's voice says,
"It's Joe."
In Diane's room, another male voice says the name
"Emily."
But most shocking of all is a woman's voice in the parents' bedroom that speaks over my partner and loud and clear as a day says,
Stop talking.
We couldn't believe what we had caught and will be uploading it to HH Facebook page for anyone who wants to hear. We'll definitely be back to this ominous and active house.
And while there are many very positive reviews of people having amazing paranormal activity, we must point out that there are a few not so glowing reviews. However, when we usually say this is pretty backed up by legitimate complaints, this time though, it's because the spirit wouldn't bark on command. So we leave it up to you, Booze Crew. Is it the most haunted house in all the UK? Or just a clever plot to sell tickets to an unsuspecting paranormal enthusiast? You be the judge. Make no mistake though, once you're inside 30 East Drive, things you see in the dark may not be as they appear.
Okay, so I have a few things here.
Okay.
One is when I was looking at the TripAdvisor reviews, the only complaints I could find were people mad because they didn't have any activity.
Oh.
That's it. I mean, literally, there was nothing else.
Really?
Yes, there was no, it's staged, they're faking it. I think one guy tried to say it was staged, but then also in his review said because nothing happened. So I don't really understand how that works.
Okay. Well, I mean, like we say all the time, like it's not a guaranteed thing.
Never. It will never be. It's just like I mean, I hate to be like a crude thing, but every time a man takes a woman out on a first date, you're not getting lucky. It's not a guarantee.
Right.
Because people are people, and people are going to do what people want. And if you are a believer in the paranormal, then these are just people.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
sometimes maybe they're tired of dancing for you.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. So most of the time we find them, and there's other reasons for the bad reviews. But
yeah.
These are nothing. These are people just mad because they didn't get what they wanted.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, before we get into the is it real portion of the show, I found EVPs. We have
Yay!
EVPs.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited right now.
So we're going to listen to a couple EVPs.
Okay.
We're going to see what we can find, and the normal game. Now, this first one is from TikTok, so hopefully it's a good, clear one, because sometimes the TikTok ones are kind of hard.
Okay, we haven't done this in so long.
I know.
I'm so excited right now.
Let's check this out. One more time. There's a lot going on there.
I can't tell what is what.
I mean, it just says EVP captured at 30 East Drive by Birmingham Ghosthunter. It was posted by Alan Turner. He definitely hears voices.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure, but I don't know if it's investigators.
That's the thing.
You can't really tell a difference of anything that's coming through there.
If that's all EVP, then wow.
Right.
But I hear two voices.
I do too.
I hear a man kind of mumbling and then a woman say something.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they are, but I mean, there's not enough context because it's TikTok.
Agreed.
So if it's an EVP, hey, awesome. All right, so since TikTok was such a fruitless adventure,
Boo.
this one is from Facebook called Pepper Investigations, and it just is an EVP from each drive. There's no actual video, it's just sound. So
Okay.
we're going to check it out and see what it is.
Can you tell me what your name is? Can you let me know if you're here?
Wow,
Whoa.
that was cool.
I have no idea what was said, but you can absolutely hear something.
All right, I'm gonna play that one again. I like that one.
Okay.
Can you tell me what your name is? Can you let me know if you're here?
That was like almost like a full-on sentence.
I have no idea what that said.
Whoa.
And there's nothing that tells me what it said. That was
Cool.
it's kind of creepy.
Yeah. Yes.
I think another issue is also going to be like there's going to be like an accent barrier for us. So like not that we can't understand, like British people, but now
EVPs are hard enough to hear already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm looking. I want to find one more, at least one more. I love doing the EVPs,
I know.
but it's looking like we'd have to watch more TikTok, and TikTok is just it's not panning out. All right, so whatever. That's where we're at. We got two good ones.
Okay.
Well, one good one. I think the other one might have been good. I'm just not sure.
Yeah. It's too chaotic sounding.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to leave in all the adventure trying to get just the two or not. But just so you guys know, we had to listen to a bunch of weird ones that
Yes.
went nowhere. So I guess with that being said, we've done the history and we've done the hauntings and all that stuff, the history and mystery, if you will.
Yeah.
And I have a question to ask you that, we miss doing, and that is...
Is it real?
So, Megan, when it comes to 30 East Drive and the Black Monk of Pontefract, what do you think? Is it real?
I'm going to say yes. I think I'm going to say yes on this one. I think that just like we talked about earlier, the fact that they didn't sell tickets to everyone for the show type of thing. And it was, so many people had witnessed something, whatever that may have been. And I don't know. I really do. I think this place is haunted. And maybe it just had to show itself to the family and it stopped. But now that new people are coming in all the time and like new owners and they're doing the whole paranormal investigation parts of it, that, maybe people really are having experiences there. Okay. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
What do you think?
I am going to say yes, but it's going to kind of come with a caveat.
Okay.
I think it was haunted, 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think something happened. I'm not even going to say haunted. I think something happened. Something unexplainable happened. Too many people saw it for it to just be wrote off as nothing.
Okay.
I can't wrap my head around how did the family move back in that had the initial problem but never had another problem?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now people are claiming to have all kinds of stuff. I'm not saying that it couldn't be like that. Maybe it's on a time cycle. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
If there were gallows there, other people were hung there. I'm going to say yes, just because of certain things make me lean towards that. It's really a lot to do with how many people saw it and how many skeptics go there now and have experiences. I think is a big deal. So to what degree, I'm really not sure. It could be a lot. It could be I don't know. But I'll say which means, for the first time in a long time, this one is going to get
the big old seal of approval.
Yay!
that is 30 East Drive. So if you're in the UK or have the ability to travel there, go check it out and let us know what it's like. And
So cool.
we
did not answer a question.
Okay.
Would you stay there?
Yeah, I'd say there.
Yeah, me too.
And I mean, nothing's happening there now that is like what Diane experienced, where she was being dragged up the stairs.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd still want to see for myself, even if it was a nightmarish night. I'd still want to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, 30th Drive. It sounds like a cool destination.
It really does.
You know, if you've been there, lucky you, and if you're going there, good luck.
Godspeed.
We have some UK listeners, so if any of you guys have ever been there, send us some pictures. I'd love to see, like, not a Google image. I'd like to see a real photo.
Heck yeah.
That is 30 East Drive. It is haunted because we said so. But yeah, this is it. So where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at For the Booze.
And you can also find us on YouTube at For the Booze, and soon coming, obviously, there's going to be some videos because we mentioned it at the beginning.
Yay.
Also find us on X or X Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at For the Booze. And at TikTok, I'm still putting stuff out here and there on For the Booze. It's mostly, I mean, I do like some paranormal clips and stuff like that, but I do a lot of like what we're talking about. So if you want to know what we're going to be talking about kind of early, that's usually where you can
sneak peeks.
Yeah, that's where you can usually find it.
Yeah.
And don't forget to 5-star rate and review the show. We need it to move up. And if you have a suggestion, a place you'd like us to cover, or you have a paranormal story you'd like us to read, I know been slacking, but we're in the middle of something. I do have a story. It's coming up, but we need more. We don't have enough. We don't really have any past the next one.
Nope.
So send them in to fortheboost12@gmail.com. And yeah, I can never figure out how I want to end the show. So end the show, Megan. End the show.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye. See, I did it that time.
Yay.